All right, guys, I got some real riding in yesterday in South Florida here. We went out of Fort Myers and we went east into the middle of the state. Basically just gravel and dirt roads and there was a lot of water though, so we couldn't get on a lot of the trails. But I kind of got my first real ride in, got her a little dirty, not much. My friends were well, I got to street ride with my buddy on his African twin. He just bought a brand new African twin. And so we got to ride together for about an hour on the roads out to another friend's house, in which we loaded up this into a trailer with a DRZ 400 and then a KTM 500. So those guys cheated on me and they took their little dirt bikes and then they dragged me around some thicker trails, heavier mud, big rutty stuff, tractor ruts and stuff. So it was kind of challenging for the first day of these tires. Obviously don't really have great knobbies for climbing up soft ruts, but it managed to stay upright the whole time. And here's a couple of little updates on what I learned on it, getting it a little dusty and rutty and muddy. These tires, yeah, they're kind of more road oriented, so it'd been nice to have some kind of killer knobbies on the sides to climb up those soft ruts, but these worked fine. It was fun to spin the tire a little bit on the dusty roads. I got these packs on here, protected the paint with a little blue tape for now. I noticed that when I put that, what do you call it, ceramic wax on, it was so slippery the tape wouldn't stick, so I had to clean it off to get the tape on there. But one thing we did notice, I got to play with the suspension. I haven't touched. I have no idea. I think it's 100% stock, but it is pretty mushy. So when I was hitting some of them deeper ruts, I was pounding the shocks in so deep that these lights are hitting. So the guy that owned it before me installed these lights, and these lights are now bouncing into this when this suspension compresses. The other fear I have, as you can see, the suspension compresses upward and inward towards the bike. So I was concerned this fender could technically get caught on this bar with a good, real deep compression. So, I'm learning little aftermarket issues. I don't know if I can turn that bar around or something, but I might want to try to further distance that and stiffen up the front a little bit for the harder hits in the deep wells, those tractor tire holes that are left out in these farm fields. So stuff like that. The other thing I'm noticing is there must be water inside this pipe. It just keeps bleeding rust out of there inside of this bar. So I gotta, I don't know, clean that up or seal it or something, because it's kind of annoying to keep spraying rust all over the bike. But bike handled great. I let my friends ride it and they really liked it. My buddy, he's a younger guy, more advanced rider than we are, he preferred this over the African twin in terms of its weight and manageability. But the African twin's gorgeous. And I did drag race the KTM 500, which has been modded a little bit in terms of, it's brand new, 4-stroke 500, and it's got the tuner in it and the pipe on it and stuff like that, and it is fast. But I was able to, we were basically neck and neck up to about in the high 70s, and then I started to pull away a little bit at the top or higher speed. I hit about 101 on this thing for a second, and then I drag raced both of them again. Of course, the DRZ got left behind heavily, even in the short run, and the 500 was running with me. I was able to get him all the way, right up to 60 and beyond. And I did learn about the torque wheelies on this thing now. So when I slammed it to drag race them, we were on the road just for goofing around between trails. Yeah, I pulled up in first off the ground, the front wheel, and then it pulled up in second off the ground, the front wheel. So I was like riding a wheelie for the first up to probably 30, on the full throttle. So yeah, she'll pull up when you start to really jam her. So yeah, that was kind of fun. And then, like I said, I power slid the tires on the gravel and stuff like that, slammed on the brakes, took off the ABS, and tested all that. So I'm really happy with it. It's a great bike. I mean, they're built for what they're built for. When we got out there in the deep mud and there was this pond we were going to think about crossing, well, they were. I wasn't even going to attempt it because I knew once this got bogged in the mud, I couldn't lift it up. And I was like, all three of us, I don't know if we can drag it out of that mud. But, the cows had been walking around and they're softening it all up. So it was kind of a mess. And they were trying to scope a way around it through the woods. And I said, screw that. I'm not bushwhacking with this thing. So we skipped that mud hole and went around. Anyway, I guess my point is that, yeah, she's awesome for those, dirt roads where you're doing 55, 60 miles an hour. Road riding the whole time was quite comfortable. Yeah, I know I did about 180 miles yesterday. So yeah, my ass started to feel that seat a little bit, but it does on every bike I ride. I got a bony little ass, so not much going on there. So yeah, I maybe would go with the Seat Concepts people talk about, or is that the brand I think that they recommend? So I might check that out. Buffeting wise, it's not bad. I plan on doing more off-road, so I don't care. I'm standing up and, you're at lower speeds. So, the buffeting's not a big deal. It was grabbing the peak of my helmet. I could feel a fistful of air kind of right here, and it would kind of pull on my peak sometimes. Obviously, when I hit those high 90s and 100 mile an hour mark and all of a sudden tilt my head back, the peak of my helmet practically, ripped off. But obviously that's not made for that. I have another helmet I could ride without a peak on it or a visor, and that would be a little smoother if you're going more road oriented. But again, my goal is to I'd like to get out west and do the kind of open Moab areas and then bring a smaller bike for the hardcore stuff, because this is no fun when you get into the tight stuff. Like yesterday, I would have loved to have torn through that big mud puddle and gone bushwhacking through the woods, but only on maybe my WR250R or even lighter, I prefer. So I'm now looking at getting I've always wanted the WR250F, but I want to get it plated, and that's not as easy, so I have to figure that out. But all right, that's my update. I love the bike. Road comfort's awesome. Power is great. It's all you need, really, in my opinion, for highway and or any dirt. And I love the predictability and nimbleness. I was doing kind of my little trials around the grassy farmland there with muddy ruts and stuff, and just kind of coming to a stop, standing up without putting your feet down, and getting rolling start with the clutch. And the clutch is nice and soft and feathery, and it works comfortable. The shifting's good. You don't have to use a lot of clutch. You can just drop a hair of clutch in and slip those gears in nicely. I love the gear shift indicator, that big giant number up there. That is great. And the beauty of this gear shift indicator, which is unlike, say, the Street Glide I had, is it'll tell you what gear you're in even if the clutch is pulled in. Like the Street Glide would only let you know when the clutch was dropped. So say you're at the stop light, and you're trying to figure out what gear you're in. If you were in a Street Glide and the clutch is in, you could be in third and you wouldn't know it. So you'd have to it just didn't work. So this one, you pull up, the clutch is in, and it'll say, oh yeah, you're in third. You got to drop down to first to get going here or whatever, so that makes sense. These tilt pegs, I don't notice them at all. At first, when he said he had them on there, I was like, oh, I don't like that. I want to be able to control my ankles. Well, I didn't notice them at all myself. I don't know if I'm brain dead or what, but they did not affect me. I couldn't even tell they were there. But my buddy rode it, and he's like, oh my God, I hate these things. I got to get rid of those right away. He liked the bike a lot, hated the pegs. And I said, really? I couldn't even feel them. I didn't even know what the hell they were doing. But the standing up position is awesome. So I think, if you're considering one, it is what it is. It's heavy. It's big. Yeah, you're not going through that deep mud hole unless you're a big dude and can pick this thing out of there, drag it out of there, because you could be there all day trying to get this thing. You'd need a Jeep to pull this thing out if you got in deep, halfway up the wheel wells in some sticky mud. But so yeah, I love it. Got to do some tweaking. Got to move these lights. They're smashing into that, and go from there. I got another video coming right up after this that'll kind of give you a little tip on some issues that these things are having. Talk to you in a minute. Or take care. Appreciate any likes and subscribe. Hope that helps you guys.